Led on and thoroughly moved, so led on by these things and thoroughly moved by the authority of Orgetorix, they decided or they established or set up those things which to the setting out were pertaining. So they decided to put together, so they decided to put together those things which were pertaining to setting out of, of yoke animals, I think that's what they say, pack animals, yoke animals, and of carts, as great a number as possible to buy. So quam, before a phrase like this, means as great as possible. As great as possible of sowings, like to make. So they sowed as many seeds as possible so that they would have a lot of grain for the road, in order that in the journey an abundance of grain would be supplied, with the neighboring states peace and friendship to confirm. So they confirmed peace and friendship with the neighboring states so that they could pass through there. For completing those things, or for those things, for the add plus a gerundive is going to be for a purpose statement. So for completing those things, they considered 2 years to be enough for them. Into the 3rd year, by law, they confirmed the setting out. For those things to be completed, Orgetorix is chosen. He for himself a legate toward the states took up. On that journey, he persuaded Casticus, remember persuader, it takes the dative, the son of Catalandus, a Sequani, whose father rule or absolute authority in the Sequani for many years had held, and by the Senate of the Roman people a friend had been called. And what did he persuade him? He persuaded him that he might occupy in his own state absolute authority, because his father, brackets his, had held it before. The same to Dumnorogix, the Iduean, the brother of Diviacus. Actually, that should probably be the genitive. Yeah, right there. Who, at that time, the chief place, or like the princeship, I guess, was holding the principal place in the state. So he was holding the principal place in the state, and most greatly had been accepted to the people, or had been acceptable to the common people. And he persuaded that he may try the same, or that he might try the same thing. And to him his own daughter in matrimony he gives. So Orgetorix gives his own daughter in marriage to this guy to try to persuade him. He proves to them it to be most easy to do. So that's a supine translated like an infinitive. So he proves to them it, implied e, to be most easy to do. And what is the thing that's most easy to do? To complete the things having been begun. Because he himself would obtain the authority, or like absolute rule of his own state. There not to be a doubt that the Helvetii were able the most, so like they're the most able of all of Gaul. He confirms himself about to gain, or about to bring together, gain over, win, secure. So he confirms that he is about to gain kingdoms for them by means of his own troops, or not necessarily, I guess kingdoms are absolute rule for them, by means of his own troops and by means of his own army. By this speech led on amongst himself trust and an oath. This is translated as an oath here. But it's kind of like an oath to be obeyed they give, and with the kingdom having been occupied through the 3 most powerful, most firm people, they hope themselves to be able to gain rule of all of Gaul. You can see the footnote, sopotiri can take the ablative or the genitive. That matter is through a disclosure, or through an informer, announced to the Helvetii according to their customs, they compelled Orgetorix to state the case or state his cause out of chains, so they have him bound up. This is probably the other Helvetii who were not part of the conspiracy to take rule of all of Gaul. Condemned, it was fitting to punishment to follow, fitting for punishment to follow. So it's kind of like if he's condemned, it's fitting for the punishment to follow, namely that, there's no namely, but that by fire he would be cremated. With the day having been established of the pleading of the speech, or of the pleading of the case, Orgetorix to the trial, all his family, ad miliardecem hominum is kind of like about 10,000 of men, so about toward 10,000 men, so around 10,000 men from all sides he drives together. All right, so he called together everyone he knows, and all his clients and all his debtors, of whom a great number he was having, he led together to the same place. Through them, so that he may not state the case, or so that he may not face trial, he snatches himself away. When the state, incited by that matter, namely that Orgetorix escaped, attempted to follow their own right, or like their own justice, with weapons, a multitude of men from the fields, the magistrates drove together. Orgetorix died. So they were just getting ready to hunt him down, and then Orgetorix died somehow. Neither is the suspicion absent that as the Helvetii think. Neither is a suspicion absent as the Helvetii think that he himself resolved upon death for himself, so that maybe he killed himself. After the death of him, in no way less the Helvetii that which they had established to do attempt. So they attempt to do that which they had established to do, namely, or that from their own borders they may exit. When themselves already, for that matter, prepared, they thought themselves to be prepared. All their towns in number about 12, villages about 400, and the remaining private buildings they burn. All the grain except or besides that which with themselves they would carry, they burn. In order that, with hope having been poured out of return to home, they would be more prepared for all the dangers to be undergone. So by burning all their homes, they would not think that that was an option to return home. They order each to carry out from home for themselves crushed grains of 3 months, so like 3 months worth of crushed grain. They persuade the Raraki and the Tulungi and their neighboring Latrobogis that with the same plan having been used, or with that having used the same plan, with all of their villages having been burned, together with them they may set out. The boyos, or the boyi, who across the Rhine had dwelled, and into the Norikian field had crossed, that they may attack the Nori, and that they join to themselves, as received companions for themselves.